next panel session, and this will be hosted by Rika Rakic from the International Biathlon Union, but she has a long track record with the development of skiing in China. So delighted to have Rika with us. And I'm also going to welcome Joseph Fitzgerald. Joseph has worked for over 20 years as a FIS race director, and he is now an advisor for Beijing 2022 and the president of Swiss Ski, Urs Lehmann. And Urs has a remarkable track record. He is a world champion, 1993 FIS Alpine World Championships. He's also a PhD doctorate holder. He's the president of Swiss Ski and the president of Simulasen, a major international corporation based in Switzerland. So I will hand it over to Rika to lead this discussion.
Thank you very much, Guy, and good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to be moderating this session for the next 25 or so minutes. We've already heard from Yang, who really kickstarted the momentum for winter sports as the first ever Winter Olympic gold medalist. And we've had a very interesting session with Nicholas Carlson from the International Biathlon Union, talking about the development of biathlon in China. Biathlon is a very special type of winter sport with the two extremely different sports combined, Nordic skiing or cross-country skiing and shooting. Now, what we're going to do in this session is we'll be speaking about the development of skiing and snowboarding. And as Guy just said, we've had two very interesting, great panelists joining us today. We have very different perspectives from them, the two of them, and we'd like to continue discussion, but also welcome audience feedback. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A button on your screen and submit your questions. We'll be happy to take any of those. Otherwise, we'll also leave some time at the end of the session to answer any questions. So I'd like to welcome Urs Lehmann. Very nice to have you with us today.
My pleasure.
And we already heard that you are here representing the FIS National Ski Association from Switzerland, Swiss Ski. And we know that you are a highly accomplished skier yourself, having that experience and medal from Morioka, Japan, right?
Right. Close by China, but not specifically. Yeah, Asia.
Asia, correct. Now, and then we have joining Urs is Joe Fitzgerald, who is the former FIS freestyle coordinator and my office mate when I was actually next door office mate when I was working at FIS. He's retired from FIS, but currently serving as an international expert, working with the Beijing 2022 organizing committee for the Olympic Winter Games is coming up. Joe is a native of Canada, but he has been all around the world and dedicate most of his life, professional life, to the further development of winter sports. So we will have very interesting perspectives here. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks, Rika.
So let's get started with some observations about the evolution of skiing in China from your personal perspective. Now, Joe, you are supporting Beijing 2022. And indeed, you just returned from a long stay in Zhongli, but are joining us today from your home in Switzerland. In your role at FIS for the over 20 years, you had really a front row seat in witnessing how China came on the international skiing scene, and then have been frequently visiting China ever since the early 2000s. Now, could you comment on what you have seen developing there from that perspective of yours over the last 25 years?
Thanks, Rika. It's been a very long time that I've been traveling there and experiencing the culture and watched the fantastic development both in the economy and also the development in winter sports. But this goes back a little bit further because our committee at FIS, the Freestyle Skiing Committee, took on as an objective to add some new events and also to try to build up these new events in China. So this was a mission and a goal, and the International Ski Federation has two objectives: to make skiing popular and also to make it safe. So I took those on as a little bit of a personal situation, and was invited in 2002 to review the infrastructure and the development of skiing in China, and traveled mainly up in the northeast, and visited many different places. And of course, there's cold temperatures and mountains and quite a bit of enthusiasm. And since then, it's taking a massive development, and I would maybe travel there every 6 months, one trip in the summertime for inspections, and then trip in the wintertime for the competitions. And the cities and the resorts and everything, every 6 months would change and develop, and you could see this whole thing coming on. Also, I had invested early in the Ski Association in aerials, which is a very niche, small sport. And I first was introduced to the Chinese aerial team in 1994 at the Olympics, where they just showed up, and I thought that was pretty fascinating. And then since then, they've developed up teams, they've hired international coaches, developed up infrastructure, run numerous World Cups in these competitions, had some pretty good success, won some quite a few Olympic medals actually, and the first gold medal in Torino in 2006. So that really started to get the investment and the interest, and then they started to branch out into snowboard half pipe. And then now they've gone as far as they've got teams in all the different disciplines, and have been very successful recently in the parallel giant slalom in snowboarding. And then once there's a success on one side in say half pipe in snowboarding on the female side, then the males will come in, and then they'll also create a team for ski half pipe. So it's been building up, and of course this announcement when they got the Olympics was really created a lot of interest. And what's in place right now is probably the world's best sport infrastructure, and educating lots of people, a huge amount of interest. And I think it's been fascinating to watch and be involved with over all these years. And I think the future is very, very positive.
Well, it's actually what you just summarized there is already a journey of 25 years, plus minus. So it's in a way a long road already. We are just about to see a big highlight in about years' time at the Olympic Winter Games. But as Yang already basically started the session saying, is like, well, it's just the beginning. So we obviously have much to still look forward to. Thank you. I will turn now to Urs, maybe to get his opening perspective to this. Urs, you too have visited China several times during your long career. Can you speak of what you see emerging there, and how that's maybe different from your perspective as coming from one of the main ski nations, Switzerland?
Yes, thank you, Rika. Indeed, I've been to China several times, and one of my personal highlights, was a lecture that I had at the Tsinghua University in Beijing, telling an illustrated crowd from the Chinese Ski Association, CSA, and many others, officials, etc., about the culture, about the journey that Switzerland has gone through, in the sense that China and the officials wanted to learn from us. Today, we are talking about building up a culture, what it means. And what I've seen in China is really amazing, is fascinating, and Joe has told us quite a bit. But let me start with Switzerland and do some kind of a comparison. And when I was preparing this session and sitting back, I was asking myself, well, does Switzerland have a skiing culture? And I clearly could state, without being superstitious, yes, we've built over more than 100 years a skiing culture. Why? If I'm watching today TV, there's a huge identification of the people of the Swiss when they see the elite sport on TV, and how that is where we are today. And how did this all come up? Well, first of all, we are living in the middle of the Alps. All around there, high mountains, a lot of snow. which means we had great premises very much from the beginning. But the second point, which is very important, over the decades, there was a huge infrastructure buildup, like gondolas, like jumps, etc., that not only the elite sport, but also everybody, youngsters, seniors, families can use many infrastructures. Due to that, tourism is very strong in Switzerland. That's another point. Tourism as a part of the economy. So tourism supports or has been supporting the elite sport, Swiss ski, for many decades too. And one very important element then is that the bridge from tourism went into the industry economy, that we have a lot of sponsors that they said, well, with all the role models that we have from the elite sport, we can transfer our image or we can create emotions by using athletes in sponsorships. That was very important too. And one other, and we already heard that from Nicholas, also being adapted in China, it's even part of the school. They have skiing classes, they have skiing camps where they go on a weekly basis or even longer. Every class goes on skiing, which means basically skiing is a part of the educational system in Switzerland. And that is also very important, goes back to the government. We have a lot of governmental support, even in schools, goes further when building infrastructure, etc. And then it goes back. With all these elements, we were able to build up really a culture in Switzerland, again, over decades. And that's the big difference to China. Us, it's probably 100, 120 years that today, Switzerland, everybody in Switzerland considers him or herself as being part of a skiing nation. We have overall 8.5 million people in Switzerland. Along the statistics, 3.2 million, or roughly 40% of our population, is active in winter sports. Now, why did I explain that so extensively when I do the comparison to China? What I've seen in China is amazing. I would really underline what Joe was saying. And they started a journey some 25 years ago. You were stating that. And I had the analysis in 1996, which is exactly 25 years ago. China had 11 skiing areas, 11. And along the statistics, 10,000 as a ski population. In 2018, they had, and I have to read, 742 skiing areas, which is almost double than we have in Switzerland today. And they had a skiing population of 19.7 million people, which means this is a huge potential. And out of this potential, China did very well in building up elite sport. You had already Olympic medals, 2 of them very good in snowboard and aerials. China is already huge. We've seen tremendous efforts in building up alpine teams and all the other teams. If you go to FIS and watch how many licenses there are in China, there are hundreds, if not thousands, in almost every disciplines. And China did very smart. So they contacted the bigger ski associations, like I even had the Chinese sports minister back in Switzerland. We exchanged, they wanted to learn from us, and we gave them our knowledge, and we shared the knowledge because the FIS family or the international skiing family has to grow. So this said, I think the starting point has been done. The beginning had been done, if I take the words of Yang, which are exactly the right ones. You have build up a great infrastructure in China. So the Olympic Winter Games infrastructure is ready today. They've been used. So, and there's the economy is behind, the government is behind, and what you've achieved over these 25 years is great, but building up a culture maybe takes even a little bit longer. So very important will be what happens after the Olympic Winter Games. And I hope for China, I hope for everybody involved in winter sports, that this enthusiasm, that all these efforts keep on going after the Olympic Winter Games, that sooner or later you can state, yes, we do have a skiing culture.
Thank you, Urs. Clearly, I think what you've outlined there is are two different approaches to, or let's say, fundamentals to create a skiing culture in two different countries. I'd like to turn this back to Joe now, because Joe, in his role, obviously has been part of this Olympic project in a number of countries. And I wonder if you've seen anything similar, if you can draw any parallels to any other countries where you've seen this kind of development, maybe in Russia, maybe in Korea, maybe in Japan. Are there any that you would like to outline?
Well, that was actually, as I mentioned earlier, part of my work and my job was to almost a missionary type of a thing, to go in and find some people that I could convince to organize competitions at a certain level, and then eventually come onto our calendar. The history of skiing is quite long, and actually totally mixed up with the history of Switzerland at the same time in the last 100 years. And obviously, and in Scandinavia, with Nordic skiing coming in Scandinavia, then alpine skiing coming in the Alps. And the events that I dealt with are a little bit younger or newer, but some of them are actually 40 years old. So this was, there would already be a ski culture inside of a country like Russia or something like that. And then to be able to build up these newer events, and they would, first of all, want to participate, try to come on the World Cup calendar, then participate in international competitions. And then I have what I call a sort of the magical formula, the 3-step magical formula, which is a home nation person on the podium on a sunny day on live television. And that basically drives the whole business. So if their athletes are outside competing in a different country, but they're on the podium, then the nation wants to replicate this situation inside of their own country. And that's how everything was built up over the past 20 or 25 years. So this infrastructure that's been put in place with developing people and athletes and competitions, eventually if you can create a communication, and then the communication ought to be able to attract sponsors and people that are interested in the lifestyle and the winter activities, then this all comes together and gels quite well, which is a very similar situation that's happened in China. The newer sports may be a little bit more popular than maybe the very classical alpine racing or Nordic, because these young people can actually see images coming out of different cultures, and they want to emulate these images and participate and get together. And this is also driving the whole situation quite well.
Now, maybe to build on that last comment there that you spoke about those new sports, specifically grow the winter sports culture within youngsters in China. Do you think there are specific opportunities or any other case studies that you can recall from your experience that might help there?
Again, just back from there in a live operating ski area at these test events, and it's full of family skiing, it's full of young people skiing, it's full of teenagers, maybe university students, and then very young people that are learning the sport with lots of activities and lots of emotion and lots of social network contact with all the different systems that they have in place of sharing their experiences. So that all kind of comes together, and it's gelling, and they've got learn how to ski programs and educational things. And when we were there at the test events, they had two or three universities have university programs now in skiing. So they had all the 18 to 25-year-old students in university coming out and being these national technical officials. And those experiences this investment in education and knowledge will be a huge benefit coming into the future for China.
So a lot of things coming together for China, clearly. Now we have a question for you, Urs, from the audience. let me ask you, thanks to your excellent explanation of how an ecosystem in combination with tourism sponsors needs to be established in a developing country like China, you have any lessons from your side that you would like to share, or tips on how this could be built in further in China?
Yes, and thank you, Rick. And maybe take even the second one from Anna Jelosic. I'd like to start with that one because they tie a little bit into that one where it's written, what do you see as key elements and promotional opportunities to build a strong winter sports culture amongst the Chinese youth? Let me start with that one maybe first. For me, there's two elements if you want to, if you want to have the youngsters, the kids within our families, and Joe explained this already well, two elements. First of all, and that ties also into elite sport. We need elite sport, very important to have stars. We need to create stars, role models as idols for our youngsters. If you want to win the youngsters, they look on this one digitally. They watch video clips of Rigetli and other superstars, what they're doing. And so that's why we need these guys. And that's number one. Number two is we need infrastructure. Infrastructure, wherever we see, we build up infrastructure. Even back in Switzerland, we built a hill, a jump, big jump. And what happens? Within 4 or 5 years, there's a community of children around these slopes, around these hills. And then thirdly, we need programs, which means we need instructors that take the youngsters, put them on the skis, cross country or whatever, and then, or on the snowboard, and then things for the youngsters are, we need those projects, and then this will launch. When we go a bit broader, what do we need really for lessons learned for China? I was explaining before all the elements that we need, and what is very important is building the bridges from elite sport, competition, tremendous performances that you think, wow, I never could do that, but building the bridge to a normal snowboarder or an alpine skier with leisure sports on this infrastructure that we built up. You need programs done by CSA, Chinese Ski Association, by the government, in Switzerland, we have a ski school, Swiss Snow Sports Ski School instructors. And all this together, we have a great communication between these institutions. We aligned our programs. And once you build this bridge, the community becomes much bigger, much closer. You have one voice, and that makes the whole skiing family much stronger. That's what I would give as advice to China. Take your very strong elements that you have, tie them together, and then you move forward.
Excellent. It does sound like many of the building blocks are already in place in China. Now, maybe both of you, I'd like to ask, what are then maybe challenges that you see coming, that maybe stepping stones that still need to be built for really that all to come together? Urs, would you like to start?
Well, for me, I have one key question back to China, because as you were saying, Rika, China has all the elements, has all the power in the world. I've seen a hospital built up within 1 week. In Switzerland, that will take 5 years. So you can do it. What it took us 110 years, China can do it in you can do the calculation yourself. But there's a but. Stability is very important. Stability in the sense defining a strategy and then moving on forward. So how I know China, it's very important that the politics, that the president, he gave a huge commitment for the sport 4 years ago. And then we have, again, this Olympic Winter Games, which will be fabulous, I'm sure. But it's important that the government and all related institutions stay on this track, that the commitment is not only until 2022, but we have to talk about 2030, 2040, 2050, that we have a commitment of the official authorities. If that's given, China will be very successful in any dimension.
Excellent. Joe, would you like to offer your perspective?
Yeah, I share Urs' remarks there. I do believe, because I've worked with the same people in China for 20 or 25 years, they are fully committed. They have a long-term plan. Of course, there's short-term goals with trying to get results and do things, but now this infrastructure has been laid out in place. There's systems where there's, you know, one snow cap, 2 or 3 snowmaking guns, and a T-bar lift all over China, and this will start to build the whole situation up. Education is very important in China, and again, from what I've seen from giving presentations at universities and different educational stuff, educating officials with the International Ski Federation, is there's a great need for this love for this education and this communication and this information. So I think it's building up the human resources, which the Olympics will drive this right now, and other World Cup competitions have driven this in different locations in China. And when we go back to some place we haven't been to for 5 or 6 or 7 years, there's still the infrastructure and the knowledgeable and the people in place. So I think education, training people, and then with this massive infrastructure in place, this has all the basis to really move forward tremendously.
Right. It seems the key then, from what you just said, both of you, is continued commitment, because the creation of a ski culture will be a long-term endeavor. It won't happen even in 25 years, although we've seen great progress, a lot of great successes, especially at the highest level. And perhaps ski culture that will emerge in China will be its own version. It will be the Chinese version of our ski culture, given its starting point, given the interests of the population, given the topography and the size of winter and extent of it. So I suppose we can conclude that China is definitely, well, it's on its way. Would you like to have any concluding remarks on that? Yours?
I see another question of Michelle Lee in the sense of what is Swiss ski strategy to engage with Chinese ski population? Well,
Great.
There's a lot of efforts on various levels. So if I start with Swiss ski, in 2017, in September, we signed a memorandum of understanding in the sense of cooperation with China. And following to that, we had a couple of conversations where we exchanged know-how on various levels, on elite sports, what has to be done, leisure sports, the youth programs, etc. We were even open to really provide people from Switzerland, you know, in the sense of coach to coach, etc., and so forth. So that was on or what has been done on one level. On, let's say, on a more private level, we see cooperations between, for instance, with LAX as a partnership in China. I'm not quite sure whether it's Secret Garden, I think, and then we have Crans-Montana as a partnership, and there's another initiative, a ski school from Switzerland, close cooperation with us, with Swiss Ski and Aligned in their program. They went to China and opened a ski school in one of the skiing areas. So there's many initiatives. Me personally, I would hope there's more. I think we can offer more as one of the, let's say, more established skiing nations. But that always depends also on what China wants and the Chinese Ski Association wants. I think it's important that we work together, and we've seen involvement, huge involvement. Steve Dong, for instance, as one, as one exponent, being part of the FIS Council, very important, very smart. That China is coming in and saying, that's what we need, that's where we are, let's make the family stronger, and ask from Switzerland people, programs, whatever. We are open because we believe our FIS family is only as strong as all the members are. There's a statement, you are only as strong as your weakest member is. So we have to grow the younger, and like China, the younger, weak would be the wrong, but the younger partners, and then we will be successful.
Yeah, it's great to see that kind of bilateral partnerships also emerging, and I guess there is a lot that those stronger nations like yourselves in Switzerland can share with China or any other nation who is in a position to develop their skiing further. That's great and good for all of us, right? In winter sports, we have a lot of competition from the summer sports, and only I think 30% of China actually has snow. So the stronger we can make that 30%, the stronger we are.
Yes.
Very good. I would think that we have heard very interesting remarks here. If there are no more questions, I would like to turn it back to Guy.
Thank you very much indeed, Rika. Thank you, Urs. Thank you, Joseph. That was a superb session. The fascination in where you consider Switzerland as being at the pinnacle with other nations of winter sport development and ski infrastructure, and the success that you're seeing with 40% of the population skiing, contrasting with the speed of development in China. Those statistics going from 1996 to 2018, from 11 to 742 ski areas. Now, they could be in shopping malls, they could be small hills, they could be full resorts. But those numbers just give you a sense of that scale. And I think it's an exciting opportunity. Winter sports overall is looking forward to growing. And I think if China joins that family and joins that regular participation at the elite level, at the mass level, that's good news for everyone in terms of the appreciation and coming together. So thank you very much, both of you.